Wow, everybody. Welcome back to this week's episode of Powerful Stuff. Powerful Stuff is your one-stop shop for everything self-development with a little bit of cheekiness, a little bit of humor. So you leave these episodes with a little bit more connection to yourself and hopefully connection to others. And I'm your host, Meredith Baker, leadership coach and founder leadership coach and founder of Powerful Stuff. And I have a very special episode today because this is one of my very longest standing friendships since we were literally 18 working at Mayor Bloomberg's office in New York City before I started college. Kiran Gandhi, also known as Madame Gandhi. We've run countless marathons together in Vancouver, the famous London Marathon, which I'm sure we'll talk about as well. And Kiran's also an incredible musician, activist, speaker, and, something that I love about her that we'll also talk about today is, in addition to being a musician and an activist, just somebody who's an eternal student of life. So each year I feel like you've unlocked a new skill, or you're like, I'm going to do a Thai yoga massage retreat and learn all about massage. And I was just the only non-masseuse there. And I just love that about you. And it reminds me to stay curious in life too. So I'm so grateful for you to be here today.
Thank you, my friend. This is beautiful.
Oh my gosh. And just to kind of rewind it back, on the note of growth and curiosity and something that I've gotten to witness in you, when do you feel like you started to really nurture that and give it so much priority and importance in yourself?
I do feel like a seeker. I feel like I'm always seeking expansion and portals. I stay seeking portals. And I think it's like a human intuitive, is there something over here? Is there something over here? And I also, I always tell you this, I optimize for my own joy. And so when I was doing my yoga teacher training, it led me to acro yoga, which really was so inspiring for me to be flown and also to fly others. When I did my acro yoga teacher training, every other day they taught us Thai massage practices to sort of offset the sort of gymnast intensity of acro yoga. And I was even further blown away. And so that took me on the next step to say, okay, I want to go deeper into the Thai massage because it's like a yoga massage. It's such a kind gift to be able to give to others. And for me to also practice humility in a world of New York and LA, which is constantly affirming our ego. And so I think I seek the healing practices through my roots, being Indian. I seek it through my own intuition, and I seek it to balance off this very ego-focused music industry that we all operate in.
Yeah, it's so true about the humility of it, of being a student and allowing ourselves to be a beginner, especially in our career path or whatever we're known for, continually sharpening our craft or becoming an expert in a certain field. And that's something that I feel I admire deeply about you. And I love what you said of just taking the first step and then being open to where it leads you and not having the expectation of what road you might go down, but oh, this thing catches my interest. So let me dig a little deeper there.
Yeah. And also, while I always trust that if I have the time to do the thing, you're not going to have that time in the future for whatever reason. You're just not the pandemic taught us that tomorrow is not, given. And so if I have a week, if I check that there's a yoga retreat happening or a festival that I want to contribute to, or spending time with a loved one because it's their birthday. If the schedule allows and it's possible and it's financially possible and all those things, I say yes, because even that same event then the following year, it's not a given, it's not a given. And so I'm always grateful, it's now is the moment. Now is the moment. Get it done now. Be present to it now. It's calling to you now. And I trust that more than anything. And then usually when I see something through to the end, it's complete. And it's so freeing. And it's okay, and what's next? I've taken what I've learned and I've integrated it. I can give Thai massage to my parents or to my band members or to a friend who's just driven a whole lot to come and visit me. Or I can learn Thai massage on myself by stretching my body in ways that otherwise, I wasn't taking care of myself at that level. So I love the humility of it, and I love the requirement of presence.
I was so honored to be one of your first recipients of your Thai massage when I hosted a yoga Best Morning Ever, a Powerful Stuff event last year in San Francisco. You had just gotten back and everyone was just sitting there chatting and you're like, would you like to receive one? I'm like, well, I'm not going to say no. But it's such a delightful gift to like give to friends. And that's kind of how I got my yoga teacher training 10 years ago, is like, I don't know where this will take me, or like, I don't necessarily know if I'm going to like dedicate my whole life to teaching yoga, but it's this beautiful thing that then you can integrate into all these other spaces that you're in.
Absolutely. And I think, for me, my life is my business is my life. So I never think, okay, I'm going to make money off of this. I just go deeply into something that I love. And when I love the thing, then I want to do it. And then because I love doing it, people receive joy from it. And then they want more of it, which then the context comes in. Okay, I'll pay you for it. Or can you come by? Or can I help with expenses? Or can we trade or whatever? And even in my work as a musician, it's so interesting. I'll get asked to come and perform at a festival. But even 2 days ago, I taught a full breathwork, meditation, and yoga class at Nature Temple during Climate Week in New York. And so the more I invest in my own skill sets, the more I have to offer. And it ends up being employable just by the nature of the world that we live in. And so I find that to be so gratifying, because it's stuff that I would be doing anyway. And now you want to pay me for it. This is ideal.
Yeah, this is what we call an ideal outcome. Yeah. But the cool thing about that, and it actually reminds me, because I saw you post about that on Instagram, and you were also like using sounds that you had sampled from the microphones that you built at Stanford then when you went to Antarctica. And I'm like, Kiran is someone who lives her brand. Like, everything is incorporated. I so wish I was at that event that you led in New York, because I just feel like it's like you all in one, like your music, breathwork, meditation, like the sounds you recorded in Antarctica. And then it just reminds me of like when I'd go to your house and like everything would be yellow, just like down to your car and your luggage. And it's just like, you truly, like, some people I feel like have like their persona and like who they are at home, and there's like nothing wrong with that. But the cool thing about you is like, I feel like everything is so integrated and aligned and intentional.
Oh, thank you. I think it's real, it's sincere. And the beauty of that is that then you don't have to try. There's not like an effort.
Yeah.
The fear and the scary part of that is that it's so vulnerable. It's so real. So when somebody doesn't like it, when we're in the social media context, if I'm pumping out something that's fake and it's on social media and then people criticize it, it's less hurtful, because anyway, it was fake to begin with,
Yeah.
But if you're authentically who you are, then you have to be quite brave. You have to really daily practice self-love and self-care, because if you get pushback for loving who you are and being who you are, then it's honest, it's just scary. But the truth is that, and we know this, the more you are yourself and you practice that self-love, you actually give so much permission for others to do the same. And it really disarms people. It's so refreshing.
Yeah.
And so I've learned to just honor that. And I have to spend time equally as much as I am in the music industry and in places like New York City and in LA and all that. I balance it with being in India, being in Thailand, being with young people, being with my family, being in wholesome, spiritually minded environments, because it's purifying.
Mm-hmm.
And you have like a sense of reality. When I lived in LA, we're all encouraged to like sort of be aware of our own solipsistic universe. Like, nothing else matters except for your brand and your this and that. And there's elements of that have allowed me to make my best art, because I've not had to pay attention to what's happening in the rest of the world. It's like a level of delusion that we're all participating in.
Yes.
And I have made my best music videos because of the delusion of just being so focused on my own work. But then that equal amount of joy has also resulted in an equal and opposite amount of like depression and lack of purpose and lack of connectedness and lack of depth in my own heart, lack of self-love. And so the spiritual practices very authentically balance the two. And that's been like what I've taken away from this pandemic.
Oh my gosh, that's so real. I feel that so deeply, because also you knew me through my big like travel journalism times when I was doing my master's in African studies and living in different countries in Africa or Latin America. And I love LA so much. And there's like such a like cool community here. And like you said, so much we can be inspired by in creating our brand and creating our art. But I have felt like that kind of like emptiness when I'm here for too long,
yeah.
that I like need to go out and like see other parts of the world, or just like connect with people, or even other parts of the world could just be different parts of LA. But like,
yeah. And you know what? Vice versa is true. So sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the soft life. I'm ready for a $10 matcha. I'm ready for the oat milk lattes. I'm cool to have a million like vegan restaurants at my disposal at any moment, and tacos for days, and events and Grammys and surfing. Like so it's both. Like authentically, I'm here for the soft life, and then I challenge the soft life, and I'm like, but this is not always good for me, so it's I have like a healthy dose of like lightheartedness, when it comes to, I'm like, yeah, hit me with the soft life. I'm cool to just be in LA for 10 days and be taken care of and get a facial at Osea and whatever. Because
Right.
I've lived that life. I've grown up in America. That's true. But then I test holes in the soft life, and I'm like, this is the Matrix, and you're selling us stuff that we don't need. And actually, can I just meditate and be fine with less, So,
Right. It's the yes and,
hmm
the constant yes and. Like,
yes,
let's get the air on, but then let's go
yeah,
elsewhere
yeah.
and be humble.
hmm
What was when you were kind of having those reflections when you
Mm,
were living in LA or the pandemic, what was the first place that you went to that really helped like bring you back to center?
Well, I started hanging out in Topanga, which was so cool because I love Fela Kuti, was a Nigerian, very famous musician, big decolonize movement leader, and his music always really inspired me. And so a friend of mine who used to play Fela Kuti on Broadway, he literally performed the role of Fela. He was performing at an event in Topanga on Felabration, which is in October. So it was my love for music that brought me to Topanga during the like one, around the pandemic time. And then that opened up a whole portal for me because obviously I was like, oh, this is so nice. These are artists and people who are musical and spiritually minded, living in nature, living in the mountains, living close to the ocean. And so I packed up my bags and I lived in Topanga for 2 years of the pandemic, which was amazing.
I remember visiting you there.
Many times,
Yeah,
yes.
when you were doing the Deepak Chopra 21-day
Oh,
meditation
I stayed
series.
every day. I did one today. I do it all the time. I love the Deepak Chopra 21 days. It puts me like, it just drops me back in. I'm so grateful. So that was big. I think that was the first step, was being in nature. And then of course plant medicine, sitting for ayahuasca and taking mushrooms like more regularly during that time because I was in a much deeper healing. I was requiring a lot more healing and letting go and shedding. It was so freeing. It was like tough, but like we were in the pandemic, so it was private and I felt like it was just between me and nature. It was like so freeing in that way. And then I got into Stanford to continue my work recording nature sounds. So I had been recording nature sounds in the pandemic and making beats out of them. And I took that project to the Music Science Technology Masters that Stanford offers. And that's where they taught me how to build underwater microphones. And then I literally, the 2 years following, went to Antarctica and went to the Arctic Circle, the South Pole and North Pole, and literally recorded the sounds of glaciers melting. And this whole past week at Climate Week, I've been at the UN, I've been on panels alongside Spotify where we're featuring nature for the first time as an artist so that you can redirect streaming royalties back to the planet. And so a week ago, I launched a song called In Purpose featuring nature, which 100% of the music is organically sourced from my Antarctic field recordings. You'll hear the penguins, you'll hear the glaciers. I'm singing and rapping over the music. I produced it. I worked with a couple of other folks who also contributed. Um, and I was just, yeah, I was blown away.
Well, I was blown away. I listened to it on the way here. It's so powerful. I love nature as an artist. It's like, let's send that. Nature should be benefiting from this music. I knew that you went to Antarctica. I didn't know you went to the North Pole.
2 months ago.
Wow. That's cool. What was the difference between the two? And did you see any
Yeah,
polar bears?
we saw a polar bear. The difference is that Antarctica, which is a continent, is physical landmass that you can really walk on. It's just a huge continent of like hard land mass, which is a blessing, which means it's not melted. It's like physical. But so much of the North Pole is no longer landmass, and they don't call it a continent, they call it the Arctic Circle because it's mostly just Arctic Ocean. And most of the ice has actually melted, which is why it's such a tragedy and why ocean levels are rising and why the planet is warming.
Mhm.
It's all connected. Obviously, I have to spend more time learning from the scientists who are leading this conversation. But we entered from Norway, but you can enter from Greenland, from Canada, from Russia. And the key difference is that, yeah, the Arctic Circle is a lot more ocean, whereas Antarctica, you can really stop and walk on the land of Antarctica. It's just magical.
Wow, that's so cool. And it's cool that you had like sounds from
Both.
both.
Yeah, it was yeah, life changing, life changing. And then in the north, 24-hour daylight, so the sun never sets. It's a really profound experience. It's like 3 a.m. and the sun is shining bright. It's too cool.
Wow. Did you go with like a group
Yeah,
or
yeah, same group.
oh
The folks who took us to the south, Daybreaker did a trip to the north as well.
you were on the Daybreaker trip to the north.
Yeah.
That's so great because they
Yeah.
also have like so much programming and everything going
They
on
do,
the
but
way
I
there.
try to keep it focused on the mission, you know. I'm
Yeah.
always grateful, and I even got to perform. I got to contribute some meditating as well. But I think when you're listening to the planet, you have to be there focused and ready to listen. And the second time around, I was able to bring Leslie, my partner, and that was really special for us to kind of have that container and share that experience together as well. It was like it was a 24-hour sun for me. I think that was just really, I felt like that was so surreal. It was so
Wow.
cool.
And you're all about like living your maximum joy and like what's more maximum joy than a 24
Maximum sun.
maximum sun, more sun. Yellow 24/7.
Yeah, exactly.
What was like with what you just did at like Climate Week and everything, what's your kind of understanding or personal takeaway having seen both poles and working with the sounds in nature? Like what would your message to humanity be around it?
I mean, my hope is that if I'm choosing to use now my music as a medium for a message to bring awareness back to climate action, to protect nature, protect our environment, it's like the first step is just the messaging, the awareness, the oh yeah, right, of course, the planet. Because if we're in our day-to-day lives, unless you're like literally working in climate justice, you're going to do your best to bring, you know, your own water bottle and things like that and try to be mindful of maybe walking somewhere instead of car. Everyone's aware, but on our day-to-day life, we're not every day talking about the planet. And so music is an opportunity to sort of infiltrate that and remind people. The second is the empathy opportunity. Like if you're listening to music, the music that I made, it's rich. When I listen back to the music, I'm like, this is rich. This is so deep. It's humbling to listen to how beautiful the planet is. And so it softens you, it drops you back into your heart space. I think that's a really important required shift. If we're talking intellectually about climate, it ends up being politicized and ego driven. It's not a heart-centered conversation, and music really helps us go back into the heart space, feel an empathetic connection to the planet, feel a real personal motivation to be an agent for change. And so for me, I always think, how can I use my gifts to make the world just a little bit better? And that was quite a literal application of that, both speaking and performing. And then I'm really interested in just behind the scenes, like making choices better for myself. Like I grew up, you know this, New York
Yeah.
City, London, Los Angeles, Boston, DC, Hong Kong, Mumbai, only cities my whole life. I've never ever not lived in a city. And so by just participating in cities, you're already creating so much waste and garbage and bad behavior and overconsumption and hedonism. And I want to walk differently. You know, I find it radical to be like, I just don't need to buy as much stuff as you're trying to sell me. And I can walk places and I can myself make different choices that are leaner and more responsible. Even simple things like unsubscribing. You're like reducing server waste just by taking yourself off like all the infinite emails that people try to send us to market things to us. Like there's so many ways to clean up house and stay lean for the planet. So this is the journey that I'm walking. Like my own art is inspiring me to walk responsibly. And it's, you know, it's not always easy. Someone wants to be sweet to you, they give you a bottle of water. It's plastic. It's the worst thing. You know, you're not
Yeah.
gonna, you know, it's always like, you're not like, no, keep your water. I'm a plant. You know, you're not gonna make somebody feel bad. But there's a lot of things like even if you want to do your best, you're still caught, you know?
Yeah.
So in my own small way, I'm slowly learning what are the ways that I can dial things down. Obviously eating plant-based is a big one. Bringing my water bottle wherever I go, being mindful of walking. There's just as much as I can start doing, I'm trying to do.
I love that so much. And again, that kind of goes back to like truly like living, practicing what you preach and like living your art. And like, you know, I read this book called The Path of Integrity by Martha Beck. She's
Beautiful.
like been one of Oprah's like life coaches that she's featured a lot. And she always talks about like, you know, a plane taking off. And if the plane, like if even like one tiny thing isn't in alignment in the plane, it like doesn't take off because like if you're like flying in air. And I really feel like what you're saying too of like actually slowing down, like listening to the planet, listening to our heart, and then how can I like make these tiny little shifts each day versus sometimes I feel like people get overwhelmed with like all the big shifts or things that they think they have to make. But it's like all these like little realignments that like bring us back into our actual like purpose and alignment. And also that leads to like magnetism, because everybody who knows you knows that like every part of you is like for real, you know?
That's beautiful. Yeah, and we also like we're in this big counterculture part of the cultural zeitgeist. Sorry, not counterculture. We're in this cancel culture part of the zeitgeist, and people really love to like be negative to each other and like push each other down by saying, oh, well, you did this wrong and you did that wrong and I'm going to unfollow and this and that. And I think that's really damaging. Like, I think we have to be a little bit more gentle and educate each other. Of course, for people who are like seasonal, like consistently problematic, criminals, like reasonable to use your dollar and cancel somebody. I think that's brilliant. It's boycotting. It's nothing new. We've seen that in age-old activism. But I think a little more gentleness around educating each other actually optimizes for much better global behavior rather than people acting out of shame or saying they're really good about something, but secretly they're not good about it because the shame of revealing that they had a tough time, being responsible in some way was not possible for them. So I think I try to practice that gentleness with myself to then practice it with somebody else. Like vegan feels really good for me. I want to do better with clothing. I want to do better with consumption. I want to do better with travel. I travel so often for my work. We're on planes all the time. So I just mindful. I've always watched myself. Usually there's like a period of learning, consciousness, aware, knowledge first. And then slowly it transforms into permanent action. And I don't try to rush the process because usually once it lands, like I don't go backwards,
Yeah.
So that's it. Letting go of coffee. That's not necessarily to do with the planet, except for the fact that, of course, we're overly harvesting beans and things like that. But I said no to coffee because all of the caffeine and the hectic kind of feeling and the overconsumption, that felt big. That felt radical. For all the degrees I have and marathons we've run, I think I'm probably more proud of like just being able to like be so disciplined with consumption because I grew up with so much consumption. So that's feels like ninja status,
Yeah, wow. I mean, the coffee is a big one. And yeah, I just like wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, milk latte.
Of course.
But I completely agree because it's like all of these choices, it's so easy to like reach for something and it's kind of like short-term or immediate like gratification versus like how I know I'll feel like in 5 hours or when the anxiety hits or whatever, whether it's like coffee, which is, I still have my work in progress with that. But like for me, when I first got diagnosed celiac, I would still eat real bread because I was like, oh, or like real cookies. Cause back in the day,
when I was like, as good.
When I was like 13, I was like, they don't taste as good. They didn't have as many options. But then it got to a point where it was like, I started to feel so bad that my body started just like rejecting it naturally. And it felt like it was this like
arrival.
And now I just like I simply like don't crave anything that has gluten in it.
Dr. Chris was on the Diary of a CEO podcast and he said something about addiction that was so interesting to me. He said the only time someone really like no longer wants something is when they actually are disgusted by it. Like they have to go so far into the place of like disgust that they don't want it anymore. And it's interesting because I'm born and raised New Yorker. We order in all the time. That was before Postmates. You order food to the house. That was normal. And in the pandemic, I remember being at home and I looked over at my garbage and it was like overflowing with all of the like takeout containers because I had been ordering food that whole week because that's all we had. You can go into the grocery store and things like that or whatever. And I was like, this is not good. I don't want to be, this is just one person. I'm contributing all of this waste just so that I can feed myself. Something is off here. This is so foolish. And it's such a waste of money. And I understand we're in a pandemic and whatever, but my truth is that pandemic or not, have I been ordering food in my life? Of course. So when he talked about being disgusted by something in order to then feel motivated to change the behavior, I really relate to that. And so I have that visual very strong in my head, which over time, you have to do it again and again. But like when you're really hungry, you forget the impact of your ordering. And then only until after you've eaten everything and then you're left with the empty container that's plastic, you're like, oh, right, I don't want to do this anymore, Yeah. But over the last few years, I think it's just been really nice for me to be like, you don't need to order in, go eat there quickly and come back, it's okay. Just small changes. And then you just feel better. You feel correct. You feel in alignment. You feel self-respect, respect for the planet, respect for your choices. You know that at the very least, if you leave this earth, you're leaving it clean. You've changed your behaviors. You've done it right. And then I also think of higher self, what does she look like? What are like, who do I respect? And so higher self is like a combination of all the people and all the traits that I respect in others, So I'm always aspiring to that person. She's giving, she's smart, she's loving, she's boundaried, she's respectful, she's hardworking, she's dialed in on all of her habits. Like those things inspire me a lot.
Yeah. I really feel that. My highest self, Meredith, definitely on her board of advisors is you. But yeah, I mean, I love what you say about like going out and like not just ordering in. Full disclosure, I did order Postmates last night, but
Yeah, as we do. Yeah,
but
yeah.
but what you're saying too is just like creating more of an intentional moment even around our eating and savoring like all the places like where all the food came from, all the hands that have touched it, and it's like when we have like so much of the expectation or comfort of like convenience of something, the momentum sometimes becomes so great not to do it. But then, like you said, like we scarf down the food that we just ordered on Postmates, and
Yeah.
it's like not.
Or what's sold to us is like, you're so important and you're so busy that you have to now pay this other company for an exorbitant amount of convenience fees to bring you food that's like semi cold by the time it gets there, and it's not made by people who love you, and it's in a plastic thing. It's so it's so normal for me, and yet when I really zoom out, I'm like, this is so utopian. Like, if I don't have time to feed myself, I don't like. Is that really a good aspirational thing? Like we bro each other up on that. Like, oh, I'm so busy. Like I'm mad. I'm grinding this and that. And it's like, okay, but if you grinding so much, then you're gonna have to take drugs to keep you like function. Everyone's like like boasting about taking productivity drugs and drinking hella coffee and staying up all night to like be on their matrix grind or their business or the whatever.
Optimization.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think, listen, I respect a good hustle. I myself have been in the studio late nights, and it's extremely gratifying because you're working hard towards something. But I think we also have to be careful because we're fed the lie, of that hyper productivity and capitalism is the aspirational way of being, and time again, it's showing that it's not only failing us, but it's failing the planet.
Yeah. And what you said too earlier about cancel culture made me kind of think about just like our compassion with ourselves in terms
Yeah.
of like, it's so, or when we want to shift into our higher self or we're wanting to make these changes, it's so easy to like try, and then you take two steps back and you're like, never mind, change isn't possible. 20
We have to
lashes
be,
for me.
no, exactly, and we have to be in a judgment free. It's judgment free. It's like every day that you make a good choice, period, that's already good. There's no like undoing and offsetting. That's it, you made a good choice, and tomorrow if you make a bad choice, it's okay. But then the next, or I mean, it's funny because I'm saying not judgment, but actually if you ascribe good and bad, then I suppose that is a judgment. But what I mean is a positive choice that is good for the planet. If you make a choice like that, that's okay. There it is, you've done it, you're capable of it, and then the next day if you had a tough time and you make a choice that's not as positive, we just have to keep dialing it in slow by slow, tut tut tut, keep chipping away.
Right. The consistent kind of returning to awareness and also like returning to compassion.
Yeah, and smartly asking. Like if I'm like stressed and I'm like ordering in and I want to eat badly, like, okay, well then what is the why? Oh, the why is because I'm on hella planes. The why is because I'm on hella time zones. Okay, well then why are you doing that? Like if the whole point is to have a happy music career and you all out here stressed and overeating and overspending, is this really the thing that we're optimizing for? Like a level of intelligence and going deeper into the thing is what's required. And that's just a conversation within ourselves, Even
Yeah.
now, the change that I've made is instead of me going to a place one day at a time, in and out, to the extent that I can, I try to go for 10 days, for 2 weeks, to the extent that is possible. So there's a level of like grounding, natural adjustment, not needing to like overdo it, rest, actually enjoying the reason that I came there to begin with.
Right.
Which this past week in New York, I have to say, I had an amazing week because I did it that way. The first 3-4 days, I could like adjust, be calm, whatever. And then the week of just working and being in the flow, I was so present. I was rested. I was well fed. I was walking everywhere. I didn't spend hella money. And I was top of my game on every stage that I was at. And that's just between me and myself because I've worked so hard to dial it in through self-study over and over again. What gets you there happiest, but also most responsibly, because that's the sweet spot. And once you achieve it, then you know it's possible. So you keep optimizing for that.
Yeah. And like slowing down and like you said, like reflecting on like how did those things and those choices make me feel versus like how do
Yeah.
these choices make me
Shitty.
feel?
Exactly.
Celebrating the small wins. So I'm curious, like on a personal note, what was the shift with coffee? Like what was
Mm,
the Kiran coffee journey? I know
mm.
part of it because I know that like when I'll meet up with you, you'll get a
Well,
matcha
I used
now.
to see
But
people, exactly. I used to see people like whisking matcha, and I used to like laugh to myself, like, haha, can you imagine if I was one of those people who whisked my own matcha? Like, who has that kind of time? Like, this is the kind of thing that I have. This is the rhetoric, the judgmental, New York City, self-important. Like, who has time to make a fucking matcha for themselves? Like, this is ridiculous. Let me get this straight. You have to steam the thing, you have to sieve the matcha, then you have to whisk it, then you have to heat the milk. Like, who has time for it, right? Like, so this
yeah,
was the thing. So that's exactly, if I'm complaining about something, is exactly the medicine that is required, right? So
yeah,
if you're upset about something, you're complaining about it, if that's bringing up something for you, some resistance, that's obviously the medicine. It's right there. So I remember I was in Little Tokyo, I bought a whisk and I like kept it in my closet, and I was like, one day I'm gonna be one of those people who like baristas her own matchas and like makes delicious bougie matcha lattes for other people. That was just like a stepping stone. And then yeah, in the pandemic, I started meditating a lot more, and coffee and meditation don't go together. So obviously you can do your meditation before you have coffee in the morning, but that wasn't my truth. I was wanting to get up and drink coffee, then I'm trying to sit and meditate. They don't go together. Coffee is meant for firing away emails and running and these kinds of things. Buy, sell, you know?
yeah,
It's not meant for like Om Shanti. Let me like peacefully, calmly breathe and observe my thoughts. That's not what coffee is meant for.
yeah.
So switching to matcha was really amazing. And then I used to just love the taste of it. I loved how it made me feel. I loved the intelligence and the sharpness. I also felt like I stopped drinking alcohol. So then I required something less strong in the morning. Like if you're drinking alcohol at night, you need coffee to be strong so that it kind of gets you back on track in the morning. I let go of the alcohol, then I was already sharper when I was waking up in the morning anyway. That helped a lot. So then matcha. And now I would say for me, the next step is like, anyway, if I'm compulsively drinking matcha all the time, it's the same problem in terms of lack of sustainability. Like, it's absurd that you can rock up to any Starbucks anywhere in the world in the middle of the desert and have a matcha, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's the absurdity of the whole thing. So, um, even though I'm buying the nicest stuff, I'm buying the expensive stuff from Japan, I still feel, I'm on the journey now to not have it be an everyday thing, to have it be
A
more
treat.
gentle and, every now and then. And I think, I grew up drinking caffeine from when I was little. So that's probably going to be my biggest challenge. But hopefully on the next podcast, I'll be here and I'll be like, I've done it, Meredith. No, nothing in the morning. I just be out here high on the vibes,
High on the
drinking
vibes.
lemon and water
I
like
was
the
gonna say
yogis.
lemon water.
Exactly. So that's the next aspirational.
We'll do a marathon and that'll be our pre-race drink,
Exactly. Can
fueled
you
by
imagine?
lemon water.
Fueled by the good vibes.
I am, yeah, on that journey for sure. I'll go in waves where I like give up coffee and I'll switch to decaf or I'll do cacao. Admittedly, I'm still on the coffee one now, but there was definitely a point like last year where I just like loved the taste so much that I'd have two a day.
Of
And then I
course.
didn't.
Coffee is delicious,
It's
especially living in
delicious.
LA. Are you kidding? We have the best coffee ever. Today, I walked into a coffee shop. I was like, I should have just ordered coffee because this is what these people know how to do. They know how to serve a fucking delicious oat milk latte. But that's it. It's not like it's a hard no, but it's really nice for me to use coffee now strategically, which is like how we should actually use any medicinal herb. If you're not dropped in your heart space, that's the time to sit and have cacao. If you're needing to like really focus on something zen and meditate for a long time, matcha is really good for that. If you do, you've landed in a new country and you're trying to adjust because of the jet lag, you can then use coffee because coffee has such strong caffeine, it'll keep you awake. So if I'm sick, then I should have some turmeric and some ginger. Like all of these medicinal herbs are there for us. It's just the compulsive thing of having the same thing every day. That's what makes it non-sustainable. It's not normal that every single day, every human all around the world wakes up and drinks coffee. Like that's not, there's no way that that's normal. That's capitalism.
Yeah.
But if all of us could be temperate with it and use things in balance based on what we're trying to treat, basically,
Yeah.
then it evens out. Then nature is abundant and nature's so thrilled for us to interact and use these medicinal herbs strategically. But that's where I want to be with it, where it's like, yeah, I can have a coffee, yeah, I can have a matcha, but it's with intention and intelligence as to why.
And listening to your body and letting your body like
Right.
guide you versus like you were saying with the alcohol and the coffee, like it being like this vicious cycle.
Totally.
Oh my God. It reminds me of this song. This is like, but it's this song that's on YouTube. Spencer showed it to me once where it's like, I do coke so I can work more, so I can make more money, so I can do more coke.
Exactly. But that's so much of this matrix world that we live in right now. Like, I perform so that I can wear more clothes, so that I can have more clothes on the stage, so that I can perform, so that people can think I can cool. Like, it's just like, yeah, it's the fallacy that's been sold to us. But do I think that like humbly finding your passion and what you're good at, that's the ikigai, Venn diagram that everyone loves sharing, which is like, what is the thing that I'm happiest doing? What does the world need? What's my purpose? How can I be of use to others? Like that's sort of the sweet spot of, your essential contribution. Why have you been put on the planet? That's wonderful. And if you can humbly have discipline and protect your dharma and every day give a little bit to your work, that's wonderful. But the capitalism and matrix and printing dollars, it comes from like a not being good enough. It comes from a need to prove self-worth to others. It comes from an inflated ego. It comes from competitiveness. Nowhere in nature will you see animals or nature like hoard things and like, need to have more than everybody else. Like it's actually, you don't really see that. So I like the idea of humbly serving your dharma and your purpose, discipline, doing things at a high level, being excellent at what you do so that you can be of value and care to others. But I'm really trying to like protect myself from the ego rat race of like Instagram followers, money, sex appeal, this. Like, I think you're sexy if you just are like yourself and just show up, I think that's what it is.
It's so true because there's no seeking energy. It's like you were saying with like, I am enough, like just as I am, just with however many followers I have or whatever impact I'm doing. And like,
yeah. And the irony is if you're actually doing good work, then of course people are going to want to hear from you. They're going to want to follow anyway. So that's the irony of the whole thing. It's just, yeah, I think they're expecting the artists to like be full on like content companies, like I would never, like sometimes they ask you at when you perform at festivals, like I'll perform and they'll be like, okay, let's do a left at like this or that, like there's a lot of like fun content hacks that people do and I participate, but it's like that's never the kind of thing that you're going to see on Madame Gandhi Instagram. Like anything that I post, I try to have it be of value to others, that there's some kind of learning or idea share or something that's of value. Like it's not just something that is clickbaity or eye candy or whatever. And I understand we have to sell things. We have to be businesses. I think that's okay, wanting to be financially sustainable. But I try to exist through the lens of like, what is my essential contribution and how might it add value to somebody else's life?
Yeah. And I feel like your music has always had a message in that regard and like everything that you do. And with like the future is female and, starting there and doing like the nature songs and stuff that you're talking about now, like and as you would say, like in kind of making your music, which I love and I think about now whenever I hear like other songs, it's like I don't want to turn up to my own impression with like all these like derogatory lyrics and stuff. And so that's why I truly feel like your lyrics are medicine, and like even in the intention in that of like when people are singing along to something, they're singing something that's like subconsciously like helping them.
You got it. That's
Yes.
it. Mic drop. That's the Madame Gandhi thesis. This is what I'm trying to do. My friend is really good at seeing me, and that's the end of it.
That's the end.
That's it. I think, yeah, even when we're listening to music, like in the same way you can be mindful of what it is that you're eating and how it is that you're consuming it. You have to apply that to arts and media and television as well. Like there's so many lyrics that are perpetuating the stereotype of women as sexual objects. And listen, who doesn't want to be desirable? Who doesn't want to be sexy and attractive to the people they're trying to attract? But this whole patriarchal application of consumption of women and our sexuality it's so damaging, and it's so off, and it's so not the way we should be treating each other. We should be respecting each other. We should care for each other. We should love each other no matter what gender you are, in all directions. The women gotta love the men. We have to love people who are expanding their gender. I mean, it goes on, but when it comes to the lyrics, there's so much of that oppressive stuff, and it's like, yeah, the beat is fun, the vibe is cool, we're all partying. At the same time, I choose to not actively participate in this. I choose something different. I choose to listen to something that affirms beliefs that make me feel better rather than making me feel small.
Yeah, and it's something that's so important. I mean, now more than ever in how we consume anything, right? Because I feel like our country has become so polarized just because people like consume something and they like don't fact check it, and or they just hear it a bunch of times and it gets into their subconscious. And it's so wild that like this, what you're saying is so obvious, and yet so much of America and other parts of the world, like people just aren't doing that.
It's true. And you know, it's interesting because even though we think we're talking about ideas, it still comes down to ego. Like the idea of us versus them, whoever that is. Even if you think you're on the quote unquote right side of history, and you know, want to see whoever in the White House and you think that person is good for humanity, you think the other person's bad for humanity, doesn't matter. Like there's still ego there. Like I see a lot of like my friends who are very liberal, the way they want to speak to, and they think they're doing a favor by like wanting to speak to the other side with compassion. And it's like, but that alone is so condescending. No, if someone comes to me, they're like, Kiran, your thoughts are so problematic. Let me speak to you with compassion. Does that make me immediately want to start listening to you? It doesn't matter what the viewpoint is. Like it's so, it still comes from an egoic place of I'm better than you. Let me teach you something and hopefully convince you to vote differently from a place of compassion. No, compassion, actual compassion would be, a lot of people really are excited to vote for Trump. This person represents something that's of meaning to them. Most people want goodness for their families, want job security, want to feel seen, valued, heard, understood, celebrated. They see themselves, something that within themselves they see by voting for him. There is something that is deeply affirming and positive. So that's actually more sameness than it is different. Do I want to be seen and valued and heard and feel like I'm seen, I'm voting for someone who has similar values and might even protect my values? Yes. So that there's actually more sameness than there is difference. Of course, there's deeper problematic things. My own ability to have abortion care, my own ability to transition my gender. Like obviously there's a lot of problematic, you know, things that might hold people back. I'm not saying that there's not, but the real opportunity in terms of like us healing each other is not voting one way or the other. It's actually realizing the whole thing is meant to divide us. But the truth is like care, sweetness, families, wanting to be heard, valued, normal human emotions, you know?
Yeah.
It's deep.
That's so well said, because it hits close to home because I was like talking to somebody who I do really care about, and I was like really surprised by
Their choices.
That like, and I was like, well, I will try to speak to them compassionately about how why my my choice is like, you know, the not like the obvious one, but like here's all these reasons why we should be supporting Kamala. And anyways, but what you're saying is so right, of like really getting to the like foundation of like being curious of like what their true belief or motive of why they would vote for that candidate would be, versus like the alarm bells that went off in my own head about like all that Trump represents in my own head.
Of course. Of course, because ultimately the ego is going, you know, this person's opinion immediately has a threat to my identity and what I feel. And it's many things happening because of course there's a lot of violence and war damaging energy in the Trump administration. So that's undeniable. So, but that aside, the opportunity is to realize that somebody's voting this way because they really feel that that's going to be better for their lives. And that's the opportunity of sameness, because I'm voting for this candidate because I think it's better for my life. So that's actually, we're motivated from the same reasons. It's so deep. And, you know, someone was telling me the story of they met someone who's like deep pro-life activist advocate. That's their main work. And she asked this person, you know, how did you get into this work? What motivated you? And it's so interesting. She was like, oh, you know, my brother took me to a rally once when I was 9, and it was like one of the first times in my life that I felt included. Like, it had nothing to do with the topic of pro-life.
Right.
It's just like, oh, I just felt cool and included, and people encouraged me to make a sign, and people took me to go for a march, and we had lunch after that, and I felt included and safe, and it's been my work ever since because that moment touched me so much. I wanted to make this my life's work. It's like, had nothing to do with the actual issue at hand. It was everything to do with an emotional intelligence reason, which is that I belonged. I was seen. I was valued. I was listened to as a young female. This is so interesting because ironically, these are all the things that we're fighting for as well. I also want to be seen and heard and listened to as a young female. So it's just, you know, I feel so beyond the election these days in the sense of course I will vote. Of course, I feel grateful that we have more diverse candidates in the conversation. But I do think the joke is on us, thinking that we're so wise voting one way or the other, when really most people's motivation is quite similar.
Yeah. So well said. And I feel like this needs to be broadcast to everyone in America right now. But it's so true. And it's something that I've been thinking deeply about, always having strived myself, like as a journalist and otherwise, to find the middle ground. And I found myself, the last few weeks when I was like having discussions with this person, like I feel like I definitely had like my own internal wall up around, like you said, really wanting to connect on the sameness and actually not be divided. And that's how our country has to heal, because whoever gets into the White House, there's still going to be a population that feels like
Yes.
let down
Yes.
and like their candidate didn't win, and how are we going to bring the country together so we don't get even more polarized than we already are.
Exactly. Well, and I think the thing of polarization is one of dominance and control. Like as long as I feel that I'm either winning or I'm slighted, then they are controlling me.
Mm-hmm.
You know? If I feel like one day my candidate gets it, but the next day they don't, you know, it's not really it's still that I'm the slave to the system.
Yeah. Versus knowing that we're already enough, just as
No,
we are,
yeah.
and helping
No,
other
exactly.
people feel
Exactly.
that. And
Now,
that
of
comes
course,
with like the belonging you
totally.
were
And I'm
talking
not
about.
naive to say that obviously the election has very damaging results on women's safety in places that we luxuriously living in New York and LA often have the privilege of avoiding, no matter who gets the office. So this conversation is not is not a naive, excessively positive kumbaya perspective. It's just one that softens the conversation in a way that makes it possible to even engage with one another rather than feeling like, you know, so angry when having these conversations and so slighted. But of course, we have to be aware that certain candidates have a very violent impact on women's bodies and on bodies of trans folks and things like that. And people that, who are marginalized. So it's both. But I do think the healing opportunity is the biggest opportunity rather than every 4 years fighting it out on the hot button issues.
I'm like, we need a Madame Gandhi song about
Yeah,
this.
I know, that's true.
Drop it on November 5th.
That's true. I love it.
You could source like sounds from the marches of both sides and bring them into harmony. Powerful.
It's true. And that's why, like, even when I'm doing this work, like, you have to be so careful to not make a mockery out of like things that are deep. Like, it's so true. Like, that would be rad. And I have to think really carefully. I mean, every time I make a song, I always think really carefully, how do you do this in a way that has depth and is sincere rather than feeling, cheesy,
Yeah.
It's very hard to make music that is positive and aware and deep, without it feeling like it's neglecting somebody's real experience. Like when someone's experiencing pain and trauma and you're like singing happy melodies, oftentimes it can feel like even further more isolating. So you have to make music that comes from the place of pain, such that there's like a sense of awareness and solidarity. Like, no, I too am going through the pain that you are feeling and the anger that you are feeling. And I'm choosing to still make a different choice because that's worked for me. And it feels better and more empowering to not let somebody else affect my own mental health. And so that's the opportunity. But yeah, that's interesting. Let's see. Watch the space. November 5th. Let's see what happens.
Watch this space. Let's see what happens. Well, and taking us back, like rewinding the clock, definitely need to talk about the London Marathon. But was the Future is Female, did you write that before London or after? And what was the what was the catalyst for the Future is Female?
You and I ran a London Marathon. You convinced me to run London with you. I had never run a marathon in my life. I'm going to tell that story first, and then we'll go into Future Female. Well, you and I, Meredith is so awesome. Meredith is a Pisces, so Meredith is a Pisces, and she believes that anything is possible. And I, too, am a Pisces, so I resonate with that language. And you sweetly were like, come run London with me. And I think at that point, I had maybe run 12 miles max. So, like, I was running distance, but I wasn't running 26. And you were like, you can do it. You got 6 months. Like, you'll be able to do it. And you even got us into the London Marathon by fundraising for breast cancer care. So Meredith got us in. I was graduating business school. It was April. We showed up to the London Marathon, and I realized I was about to be on my period. And none of us had any like tampons or pads or anything like that. And I didn't really know if I was definitely going to start bleeding that day or like just, I kind of was secretly hoping that it was just symptoms, but like I'd start bleeding the next day or something like that. And so I was like, there's no way I'm going to use any of these products that are not suitable for 4 hours of running. So I was like, I'd rather just bleed freely and run, you know? And then we started to run and I was bleeding. I felt like such a badass. You were listening to Taylor Swift the whole time, like you were in the best mood. London, you were so Meredith was just like such a light of positivity and you were like such an energizer bunny. Meredith took so many photos. You were like running like backwards because you had run so many
like
marathons.
a proud mom.
Yeah. You were like a proud
smile.
mom. Yeah, yeah. Literally. You were like that because you had run so many at that point and you weren't trying to like crush on time. You were just there to kind of be with us and get us to the finish line. We had a third friend, Anna, join us as well. And so I just was feeding off of that. I was bleeding. I also felt proud. I was like, I'm out here bleeding and running. Like, this is badass. You know, I remember that feeling, just feeling empowering. And then when we crossed the finish line, you know, I wrote about how I was in a position of privilege to even run that way and bleed freely and celebrate my body in a way that I chose. But that so many millions of people who bleed are not in that same position. And that stigma, you know, is the most effective form of oppression because it denies us the ability to talk comfortably and confidently about our own bodies. And so I wrote about this and the story went viral. And, you know, I just graduated business school. I was getting ready to maybe go work at Spotify or something like that. And then it was just so freeing because I felt like my own choice became this whole viral moment. There's photos of me and Meredith and Anna proudly with our medals standing there at the London Marathon finish line. And I'm just bleeding. And it's just like beautiful, powerful.
And great that you wore orange that day.
Oh my God.
Imagine if you had worn black.
The
my
whole
photos
life would have been
had the same
different.
impact.
And the only reason why I wore orange is again because I was just being myself. And the day before we had gone to the Marathon Convention Center and we were wearing orange and pink bibs for breast cancer care. And the black tights didn't match. So I wanted orange tights to match the outfit. Like that, it was like the purest of reasons. It was so like, I was just fully being myself. And I was like, well, the outfit has to match so that the photos look dope because this is the marathon. Like I was just there to celebrate, you know?
Yeah.
And then exactly that, because the tights were orange and when I was bleeding, it was like a very strong visual, you know? So just is profound. So the story went viral. It went viral because for the first time, all these photographs of someone bleeding and running were going viral. I think it also went viral because I was really genuinely proud of us. Like I wrote it with a lot of confidence and a lot of like, this is badass. Like who does this? And every day all around the world, people are bleeding. And not only are we supposed to like hide it away in shame, we're doing amazing things. You know, we're running office and CEOs and parenting and chefs and whatever else we do in the planet, and we're bleeding at the same time. We should be celebrating this. So that story went viral. It launched my career really performing and producing music, but also speaking about these issues in a more meaningful way. And then a year later, I was at the UN speaking, and someone came with a Future is Female t-shirt, and I asked them about that because it was the first time that I had seen femininity positioned as something aspirational.
Yeah.
Really and tragically so, but I was so like it lit me up. I was like, oh yes, the future is female. Like that's a future that I want to live in. It felt positive, it felt loving, it felt femme-centric, it felt different, it felt fresh. And I also like tech things. I like future. I like designing the world we wish we lived in. And so I wrote The Future is Female as a song. And then that song also went viral on the Spotify charts that year because Hillary Clinton was running for office. And so, you know, it was somebody else's slogan. Obviously, it had challenging roots because the original creators of that slogan in the 70s were not trans inclusive. We're in a different time now. My message, my work is for all genders, all people. It has been, it always has been. Trans women inspire me more than anyone because trans women are the bravest to even step into the fullness of their femininity and actually deny their male privilege in order to be the authentic gender that they are. And that encourages all of us as women to be radically claiming our femininity a lot more as well. It's deeply profound and inspiring. So any of us, you know, being our most authentic gender, to me, that is Future is Female. It's fresh. Yeah. So that's why I wrote that song. And, you know, it's been in so many different places, you know, to this day. It's cool.
Yeah. What an incredible journey. And so well said. It's like the marathon was like actually just the beginning of the journey. And like,
so true.
Yeah. And The Future is Female is like had such a powerful like wind since. And with the marathon stuff too, as it was going viral, because I know it was kind of like you were, yeah, like you said, just had finished business school and were kind of like deciding on like which direction to take. Was it like that moment of really like feeling like this snowball momentum was happening of like, I'm going to kind of do something totally different and I'm just going to like go for it on my own? That
I had already been in business school my second year, and I had like gone to Spotify and YouTube and all of the jobs that like theoretically I would be qualified to do as someone who had a math background, a computer science background. I had worked at a record label, Interscope, for 2.5 years as their digital analyst, and now I had a Harvard Business School degree. Like I was like meeting for all the jobs that I was capable and qualified for. And every time I go to those offices, I'd be like, listen, I'm glad that you have like a beer pong table and like free dry cleaning and kombucha on tap and whatever. But like I don't this is not appealing to me. I'm not interested. And these are like cushy, comfortable, luxurious jobs that anyone would be so grateful to have. And I also didn't feel like I fit in, you know. I didn't fit in. And if the artists were coming to meet at Spotify or YouTube or Interscope or whatever, I always felt like that I was missing out by not being on the artist side. I was like, why am I on the like corporate side? That doesn't really suit my personality. I'm like the worst employee ever. I'm always late. I barely turn the thing in on time. Like I'm just like, you have to be self-aware, you know? So I think I was self-aware enough to be like, and I had just played the drums for MIA, right? We didn't even get a chance to talk about that. But the year before, I had been drumming for an artist called MIA all around the world. And so I felt like that's my calling. I want to take these intelligent things that I feel about feminism, about gender, about the environment, about corporate structures and share them. My ideas are my gift. My performance ability is my gift. That's what I should be doing. And I think the marathon going viral gave me a freedom and permission to go for it, because quite honestly, the path had already started, whether I wanted to or not. The virality of the story, the path was already happening to me, you know.
yeah.
I was lucky in that way where I didn't have to make this like life-changing decision. My life was already happening.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like answering the call. And I love that about the marathon too, because with MIA, while you were at HBS and drumming for MIA, and then you gave a talk, maybe it was like after, right, or in the middle of business school.
TED Talk, Atomic Living.
About atomic living, about just like saying yes to life. And I feel like that, like you already were doing that before making the, you know, the decision to go down like the musical corporate route, and like with like doing HBS and doing like drumming, like allowing the two unlike things to be true at the same time.
Yes.
Like making space for both and being like, of course, if I'm interested in both, I'm going to do both.
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel like the marathon, yeah, like you said, it was just kind of in a way a continuation of that, of like doing the marathon while bleeding, writing about it, things start happening. And then, which is cool, like, yeah, going back to just like allowing like different interests to like coexist and not like putting ourselves in a certain box, but like making them all work for us. But with it, something that I admired about how you handled it at the time, and I'm curious like your inner world thoughts on this, of like you also got a lot of like positive comments with writing the article about the, you know, bleeding during the marathon, and then you also got a lot of like nasty comments and from people who just like didn't understand, or it triggered something. And how did you start to like internally protect yourself, your energy from that?
I mean, so many answers to that question. First of all, like I really genuinely already felt me running bleeding was badass. Like, so there was no, like, I luckily wasn't seeking the, do you also think this is cool? Like, I just firmly was like, this is dope. And like, women are amazing. And every day all around the world, we're bleeding and like crushing it. And like, why is no one celebrating this? Like, this is amazing. Like, and obviously a marathon it went viral because the radical and deeply empowered act of running 26 miles while bleeding is absolutely to be celebrated. It's absolutely incredible. It's so profound. So I wasn't confused. I think that's why it just worked. I like that my own clarity was my own sense of protection. The only thing I will say is, like, had somebody else given criticism that I felt was legitimate, perhaps something along the lines of, your bleeding caused harm to XYZ person, like, that's the only criticism that I would have I would have lent my valid attention to and like listened to and been like, oh, true. so sorry. Let me make it like I'll next time I free lead a marathon, I'll make some different choices. But
Yeah.
none of the things were none of the criticisms were actually valid or legitimate. They were all based in deep misogyny that's ignorant. And I think I felt like this is ignorant. Like this is the face of ignorance. It's ugly and it's angry and it's funny and I felt free from it. And I felt delicious and young and like sexy and free. And I was like, this is amazing. Why don't all of you get off the internet and start running a marathon on your period? And once you complete the marathon successfully while bleeding, then let's have a conversation about your misogyny and your concerns. I just felt so boss I was such a boss. Like I really felt that, and I still feel that way. It's like, no problem. Stay chatting and stay trolling. But I'll only listen to you after you've come and run and done something amazing for yourself, and then we can have a conversation. So
I love that so much. It's so true. And like you said, what was it? Like protection comes from clarity or something like that. Like knowing who we are and being like, I'm proud of myself. I don't need anybody else's validation and like everyone else.
yeah, in like a sincere way, because trust me, there's plenty of things that I'm deeply insecure about, and that when somebody calls me out, it like can destroy me, absolutely, because I'm not clear and like certain on the thing. And so then there's like room in the foundation to have cracks in them for someone else's words to be really vitriolic and damaging. So in that sense too, I learned a lot from the marathon, which is that like I put out stuff that I really feel like a smile on my face, delicious pride around, and there's no confusion. And for things where I am confused, I definitely workshop it internally and get it right first and foremost before presenting it to the world. Absolutely. So I think that was it. I think had I been in a more weaker of mind position, I think the kind of hate and misogyny that I experienced, I think that would have been damaging for any 25, 26-year-old. But I think I just genuinely was like, you guys are hilarious. Why don't you first run a marathon, and then why don't you run it on day one of your period? And then why don't you run it like a badass in 4.5 hours, meaningful, legitimate time? And then why don't you graduate from Harvard? And then why don't you tour the world drumming for MIA? Like, I just like the list when I was just like, no problem. Like,
you're like get back to me once you
get
do.
me back to, yeah. And I felt so, I really, and it was so nice because it wasn't even ego. It was just like, all of you have such misogyny towards women, and yet we're out here doing our own thing. So it's just like, why, like, don't waste your time. We're going to be out here shining, and you should also shine.
Yeah. And it's such an empowering way to live, because I think it is, when we fully own the power of who we are and we allow ourselves to be seen, we also open ourselves up to that kind of ridicule or like just comments or whatever. And it's such an important reminder, because I think I talk to a lot of my coaching clients about like the creative projects or work that they want to put out, and they have such a like always the first thing they say, even sometimes before, about how they are excited about the thing, is like how they're afraid of like being attacked or what people will think. And that's why it's like so important to, like you said, get clear on like what we stand for, why we're proud of ourselves for this thing, like trusting in ourselves and knowing that like no one else could take that away from us, and then putting it out with the best of intentions.
Yeah, and I think I try to imagine myself as my own kid sometimes. Like if she thinks she's awesome, then that's enough. And if she's worried, then I protect her first before inviting other people's opinions, for sure. Trying to stamping off on something that I think is good creatively and then letting it be. That's really freeing. I only feel sensitive to other people's criticism when I already think the thing is bad or not good enough. Then I'm sensitive because they're sniffing it out quickly. But unless, like, we made the music video for Waiting For Me, and I worked my ass off on it, and I didn't put it out until it was perfection. I paid extra for the editors to be willing to do more hours and really get it right. And to this day, we've won like 26 music video awards. We're best video at South by Southwest. It was the only time an all-female Indian team had directed a music video that won best music video at South by Southwest. That's the sort of creme de la creme music video award that you can win, So I've learned, like, as long as like my stamp of approval is on the thing and I've really done everything that I think is perfection, then I'm cool with it.
I love that so much. Slight pivot into this. What time is it?
Yeah.
Are we good on time? Or 5:40. Okay. One last little like question in this area, and then we can wrap up with a little Medi if that works. So another thing, speaking of marathons, that you've gotten into this last chapter of life that I've known you, which is also so badass, is like boxing.
Oh yeah.
And like also with your partner
Yes.
being like an incredible boxing teacher and owning a
Yes.
boxing studio. And so I'm just curious, like what has exploring like the new world of boxing taught you, and also like alongside of that your relationship, and how has that impacted your art and like how you're currently thinking about
Oh my
things?
God, my relationship humbles me. It softens me. It's like a teacher, you know? And it's really amazing because I feel the mirror in my relationship dynamic so strongly. Like when I come with closed off, that's what I get. If I come with soft and open, then eventually, and I'm patient to stay vulnerable in soft and open, then my partner meets me in that. And then vice versa. Like if I'm kind of hard, um, she knows how to like also stay dropped into the heart space to soften me and like put a smile back on my face, and or to have me kind of crack that wall and come back into a place of like presence, dropped in, I'm here. Like it's only soul to soul conversation. It's not ego to ego conversation. And I've learned to listen. I've learned to like really in the body, like look out the other person's eyeballs and really see it from her perspective. That's the only way that we resolve anything in a meaningful way. It's like I can fully be in your body, look out the world in your eyes, and understand your perspective. And as a result, she does the same for me. And then there's healing, right? Because even if we disagree on something, then you're coming out with oneness on the other side. That's been so profound. And I feel like I've learned like go first. So if I'm complaining that my partner's not doing this, most of the time it's because I also need to do this, and I have to be brave enough to go first. And I think I get into a tricky part in my relationship if I'm like, well, they didn't do this and they didn't do that and they're the problem, and if they just changed this, then none of this would happen. They have their own version of exactly the same ingredients, and so I've learned to soften. That was a sigh, Meredith.
Yeah, I'm like, I feel that. I mean, I feel that in my relationship right now.
I mean, it's tricky. I think obviously we want both parties to lead that way, but I've learned like there's no world in which I give more and I lose out. And I'm not talking about draining and depleting ourselves and being run over and walked over. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a yogic, humble, I can always be kinder. I can always listen. I can always be soft and gentle. I can always not think me, and I. I can always think, yeah, true. You're right. I'm so sorry. I didn't see it from that perspective. Okay, I love you so much. You're so dear to me. I want to get it right. You know, like these are like if anyone speaks to me that way, it doesn't matter what I was so mad about 20 seconds ago. I already feel dropped into my heart space because they're showing care and a sweetness. I feel emotional just thinking about it. So you know, I try to, so the medicine that we're seeking is the medicine that we have to give. If I'm wanting to be heard, I have to listen. If I'm wanting to be, if I want attention, which I always want, I'm a born and raised performer. I'm always like, give me attention. Tell me how amazing I am. Exactly. Then I have to, then either I'm neglecting that within myself, right? So I'm seeking it externally. So I have to sort of heal that privately. Or I have to just give attention, you know, and me by being present to what my partner is present to, that immediately is intimacy, you know. And I'm telling you, I hear the battle, especially when I'm traveling and we're not physically in each other's company. That's when these things can really come out, or the opposite can happen. Like you can be so, like, oh, I'm so grateful for this person. There's a lot of people in the world who I don't click with and who I'm not super intimate and dropped in with. And I've been given the gift of this like beautiful person. Instead of me complaining and this and that, let me just take care of it with such joy and sweetness and gratitude and like, thank you. And like, I can't wait to see you. And like, I'm so humbled and like, I can't believe I get to be with you. And it just softens everything. And ultimately it's actually, that's the truth. The truth is that like, we're so lucky to have each other, not just me and my partner, but like we as humans. Wow, like we get to share, have a shared reality together. So many people can't be with their loved ones, you know? So I try to keep perspective. I try to keep respect. I try, you know, I also like, I've had to learn how to advocate. If I feel really quite strongly on something, I'm not always complaining. I try to think and say like, hey, this is really hard for me because as a kid, I experienced this. And so therefore this particular lane brings up trauma for me or brings up pain for me. And when I explain the context, it doesn't make my partner the problem. It brings her in on the thing. So she's in on it with me and actually can be like a co-protector of baby Kiran with me rather than...
It's so cute to imagine.
No, that's what you're doing. You're by being vulnerable to explain the context of why something is really triggering or hurtful for you. You remove your partner from being the bad guy and the triggerer into actually being the co-healer with you. And vice versa, because there's a lot of things that I do that like I don't think are that bad, but if they're hurtful to my partner, doesn't matter. I'm incentivized to like change my behaviors ever so slightly to make your healing journey just a little softer. Like it's my joy to do that. Like what otherwise, what is a relationship, you know? So I'm always humbly on the journey. We always say that to each other. Like we look at each other and we're like, I'm on the journey. Like I'm on the journey to love you better. I'm on the journey to get it right. I'm on the journey to be sweet and soft and healed and whatever. And it's ultimately then we drop back into a place of like completion and softness. And then ironically we are both boxers. So
I love that. You're like, we're in our soft era always, but then also like physically training, getting out the
100%. I think I enjoy being in a queer dynamic because I've always felt like I have really strong feminine energy and really strong masculine energy. And I love the interplay of being able to allow both to shine in my dynamic. I really enjoy being taken care of and loved up and soft and gentle, and then I love being on a stage and taking up space and being solar and in my power. And I think in a queer dynamic I can really enjoy both of those. Though whenever I tell my male friends this, like I appreciate when they push back and they're like, that's not true. Like any gender can like and experience both masculine and feminine. And I think all the men are like doing this amazing men's work these days and like are really dropped into like the way of the superior man and all types of language around balancing, you know, our own internal masculine and feminine, no matter what our gender identity is. And so I always appreciate that. I'm like, that's true. You know, I think no matter what your sexual orientation is and who you're dating, may we all be free to explore our authentic masculine, feminine identities. And then just to close off, this year she trained me for my first boxing fight and I did win, which was badass. And I started my day today boxing as well. And even the coach was like, let's get you having another fight. And I was like, oh, bro, like it's so much work, but like, it's so rewarding, just like a marathon. So hopefully there'll be another fight soon.
I love it. You're truly like the Kiran of all trades, like boxing, marathon, Thai massage, yoga, acro yoga, drums. Singing.
I know that we have to just take care of our bodies. Like if I want to stay on stages and produce music and travel and be a good partner, like we got to take care of our bodies. So that's why I like all the activity.
I do want to, on your next trip to LA, like, or my next trip to London, I do want to do a boxing lesson. I do feel like it would be good for me. And like, obviously I do like breath work and car screams and to like tap into like the, I don't know, but I feel like I need a little bit more of like that kind of like energy where you're really just like dropped in, focused. And also, I mean, you would know better than me, but it feels like a really good like release.
Yes, true. I mean, it is. It's the best. You feel strong in your body. You feel in control. I think I grew up going to private schools and everything was so in my head, intellectual. And I really felt sad maybe in my like 20s till now, like in the beginning of my movement journey. I felt like I wasn't in my body, both like in a sexy way and also in a physical, athletic way.
Yeah.
And so I'm so grateful to be the last 10 years. Like I really prioritized coming back to my body. And I'm so grateful that I have, because it's so fun to be like, now when I speak on stage, like I'm grounded, like I'm in my body, like I'm spiritually aware, but like I'm fully here. 2024, my soul is incarnated as Kiran in this flesh, you know, and I'm owning it. I'm not pretending to be somewhere else. Like sometimes people talk about like I'm a Martian or I'm out of this planet. And not me, like somebody will say that about themselves, like I'm from another world. And I'm thrilled to be of this world. I'm thrilled to be of this time. I'm thrilled to stand with my 2 feet on this earth, you know. So the movement and the meditation and the boxing, it helps me a lot with that.
Yeah, getting really like, I know. And I feel like one of our favorite friendship traditions is whenever I'd come back to LA or vice versa, we'd do our little yin yoga together.
Yes.
Little pigeon massages.
I love when you do that. It's the best.
Open hips, open heart.
True. It's true.
Facts.
It is. It's so true.
Okay, last question before we go into a meditation. But with all of this being said, what is like the new curiosity or joy that you're bringing into this current era?
Oh my God. My friend gave me a ride on his Vespa the other day, all through New York City and all through Brooklyn. And I was like, why have I never like prioritized riding and owning a Vespa in my life. Like I'm not even kidding. I like signed up to get my motorcycle license in London. So we'll see if I can get into that quick enough. But I honestly like that's like a quick one that came to mind when you just said it. I was like, that would be so dope to like have a little Vespa and travel around London or New York City or Malibu. I just think it's because it's so Indian. Like actually I grew up like seeing like little kids on scooters with like 3 family members, 6 family members on these scooters in Mumbai, and it's very like interestingly part of my roots and my heritage is like scooter culture and like getting around quickly. You go to Thailand, everyone's on a scooter. So there's something about it. Has nothing to do with activities or like personal wellness, but it's a skill set for sure that I'm like, this is badass. And then I've also like really enjoyed mocktail bartending. Like I took a mocktail class like at the Soho House a few months ago, which was so fun. And they're just teaching you about like ginger syrup and mint this and like, rosemary extract. And like I like the idea of like tinctures and being like, okay, you need a little lavender, like, because you're kind of high strung and like you're sounding a little sick over there. Like you need a ginger mule, something with basil. Like I like the idea of like being a medicine woman and like aware of the different herbs and how they affect people. But I mean, we're in LA, the land of that. There's a lot of people who are very good at that here. I think that would take, decades of super getting into it. But yeah, mocktail bartending and driving a Vespa are on the horizon.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
Yellow Vespa. I'm here for the mocktails. I was actually going to ask you post pod. I was like, there's a place that I want to take you to get a Blue Lotus latte.
Oh my God, let's do it.
Okay,
Beautiful.
great. Well, before that, closing all the loops here, could you lead us in a little 2 or 3 minute meditation, maybe helping our listeners like either invoke their own curiosities or kind of bringing these things that they're passionate or joyful about from these different areas to life?
Well, thank you all for listening and hanging with me and Mare. And I invite you to, if you're driving, do not close your eyes.
Especially if you're driving a Vespa.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe pause the meditation and take it home. But if you are in a great, grounded and safe place, I invite you to close the eyes. Breathe out through the nose. Breathe out through the mouth. Just find the breath for a second. And start to go within. Is there any tension, any nervousness, any tight spots in the chest, in the belly, in the mind, in the throat, in the root chakra, and the sacral chakra? Just noticing the traffic lights of chakras up and down the center of the body. Just breathing into them one by one. And as you breathe into the root chakra, the red energy, the orange sacral chakra, creative, productive energy, the belly, yellow, Manipuri, the solar plexus, our self-confidence, personal power, into the heart, and green, compassion, sweetness, love, power, into the throat, and blue, speaking your truth, your authenticity, your ability to communicate your love. Keeping the eyes closed, lifting the gaze up through the third eye. And deep, beautiful purple. And finally up through the crown chakra. White light, and allowing the shoulders to lift you up a little bit, finding the crown of the head, just pulling away from the rest of the body, lifting the chin a little bit, keeping the eyes gaze out through the third eye with the eyes closed. As you breathe, just seeing the colors of these traffic lights of your chakras illuminating up and down as you breathe. Just clearing out the passageways, unblocking, simply by celebrating your existence, celebrating your being. And the one job, the one assignment of the moment is existing, existing with relaxation, existing with inner peace, existing with a sense of gratitude, a sense of humility for the breath, humility to even take this moment for the self. Wow, amazing. And celebrate your body. Celebrate your ability to be in your body. Wriggling those fingers, wriggling those toes. If that's available to you, come back into the body, into the heart. May we live not just in the intellectual mind, in the worry mind, in the ego mind, in the high achieving mind. May we also live in the body, in the heart, and ultimately in our soul, in our expression, our truest self. And just allowing a smile to fall on the face. That sort of yogic, Buddha-like bliss. So glad I get to walk the planet in this moment. That's very cool. I'm so humbled I get to exist in this moment and just take a moment to breathe. Letting go and surrendering into that blissed, happy spirit. And all is well in every cell. And that knowing just these moments of stillness, these moments of meditation, allow us to actually be able to take on the day and take on challenging tasks with such richness, such clarity, ninja-like precision. So these moments are vital, and it's always available to us to sit peacefully and come back to our own existence, a blissful existence. And as you feel ready, the hands come in prayer in Namaste to the heart center. Just bowing the head with full gratitude. Thank you. And as you feel ready, open the eyes. We come back into the space. And I leave it to you to close us out.
Wow, that was so relaxing and powerful, soft power, if you will. Beautiful. And yeah, for our listeners and kind of your reflection questions as you think about, what you want to take from this episode, what I've gathered at least is like, where can I bring my life into even more alignment of the things that are important to me or the values that I want to embody, kind of what we were talking about with like climate and our own patterns and, habits there. I think the second thing is like, what can you be more curious about in your own life and in others? Like curious in our own life of like, what are the things that kind of like Marie Kondo would say, spark joy?
Yes.
And how can we double down on those or dive even deeper into that? And then with people that we are having disagreements and with, how can we be curious to find that sameness? And then the last thing I think is like, what would the ikigai look like? Bringing all of our different things together. How are these unique, maybe previously thought of unlike things that we love doing, and how does that uniquely equip you to share your voice or your message or your dharma with the world? So lots of food for thought, lots of plant-based food for thought, plant-based gluten-free food for thought. And yeah, if you guys want to check out Kiran, she's Madame Gandhi on Spotify and on Instagram. Is there anything else upcoming that you want people to check out as well?
For the LA folks, I'll be performing in LA. I have a few dates coming up, so just check the website for some tickets and come be with me in person.
Oh, love that. Amazing. I can attest, like, your concerts are my favorite Madame Gandhi song of the moment. Why don't you date me? I might be crazy. Why don't you date me? I'm like, I feel that so deeply.
It's a Pisces love song for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Kiran, so much for being here with me. Such a great winding conversation, but no stone unturned and all loops closed. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And I'll see you next week for more powerful stuff. thank you for coming on this powerful journey with me. I hope it was as powerful for you as it was for me. And if it was, it would mean the world to me if you rate, review, and subscribe to Powerful Stuff so I can keep bringing you the goods. We can keep going on this transformative journey together. And if there's powerful stuff that you want to share with me, with the Powerful Stuff community, tag us on Instagram at That's Powerful Stuff,